It started like any other morning on the Today Show. Bright lights, friendly smiles, and an easy tone. But when Prince Harry sat across from Hoda Kotb, the warmth didn't last long. What began as a polite interview quickly turned tense, and before anyone realized it, calm questions had turned into sharp words. By the end, the world would be talking about how a royal walked out of live television and so on, and why. The Today studio looked like morning had been poured into it. Sunlit panels, tasteful greenery, a city skyline glimmering behind glass. Hoda Kotb was already in her chair, notes neatly stacked, the kind of calm that comes from years of live television settling around her shoulders like a shawl. She smiled toward camera two, then across the small table to her guest. "Good morning," she said, warm as a cup of coffee. "Prince Harry is with us live." Harry, welcome. He liked the sound of that. Prince Harry, even after all the speeches about titles and freedom. He leaned back, the picture of relaxed authority in a slate jacket and an open-collar shirt. "Thanks for having me, Hoda." "I appreciate civilized spaces," Hoda's laugh came softly. "We try to make them." "How are you, really?" "Thriving," he said instantly. "California agrees with me. Less schedule, more agency." "Agency," Hoda repeated with a small nod. "That sounds good. What does a day look like now?" "Mine," he said, with a half-smile that bordered on smirk. "I choose when to speak, where to show up, which causes deserve oxygen. It's refreshing not to be a calendar entry other people clap for." Hoda took it in, still kind. "You've been vocal about mental health, veterans' issues. Those remain central?" "They're not hashtags I trot out," he replied, eyes flicking to the camera as if it, too, needed reminding. "They're work. Some people do parades. I do impact." A few audience members seated off camera nodded. Hoda did what she always did, gave a bridge, not a wall. "Let's talk to family lightly," she said, hands open. "How's life at home?" "Excellent," Harry said. "The kids are brilliant. We make pancakes on Sundays. I've learned you don't need a crown when you can make a perfect stack." "Pancakes over crowns," Hoda smiled. "That's a headline." She flipped a card. "Meghan, how is she?" "The two of you are often, in the conversation." The air shifted a hair. "She's fine," he said, the syllables clipped clean. "We're happy. People projecting unhappiness onto us is a cottage industry, not one I intend to subsidize." Hoda stayed gentle. "Fair, but you do live publicly. Documentaries, interviews." "Because I choose how," he cut in, still smiling, now without warmth. "There's a difference between sharing and being sold. We curate our reality, others monetize their fantasy." A tiny pause. Hoda's experience measured the temperature and moved, like a seasoned driver easing through a merge. "You've spoken beautifully about your mother, Princess Diana," she said, voice lowered with care. "I want to ask this respectfully. Does the distance from the UK, from that ecosystem, change how you carry that grief?" Harry's jaw set so faintly most would miss it. "Grief doesn't need a postal code, Hoda. And I don't carry it like a bookcase so people can peek inside on air." "I hear that," Hoda said, lightly placing her palm on her notes. "I only ask because so many who loved her feel connected to your journey." "They can feel connected without interrogating it," he replied, still velvet, now edged. "Public affection doesn't entitle private inventory." Hoda nodded once, accepting the boundary. "Understood." She offered a softer topic. "You've said America feels like home. What makes it home?" "Competence," he said. Hoda blinked. "Competence?" He let the word hang. "People here, for all the noise, judge you less by ancestors and more by output." "It's lovely. I recommend it." She smiled through the slight sting. "There's a lot of love for you here, that's for sure." She inched forward. "Do you ever miss anything about the UK? Tradition, ceremony?" "Marble echoes nicely," he said. "That I miss. Not the curators who decide which footsteps are acceptable." "Do you see a path to reconciliation?" "With the institution, with whom I speak is between me and them," he said, the calm now cool. "I know audiences love a reunion special. I'm not a series finale." Hoda's eyes stayed kind. Okay, she said, a small smile. I want to ask about purpose again. You've built platforms, books, series, charitable ventures. What's next? I'll announce things when they're real, not when a network needs a tease, he said. The studio's brightness felt a shade dimmer. Hoda let out a gentle chuckle, diffusing. We do love a tease. She glanced at her stack and chose a card as if it weighed nothing. A personal one, if it's okay. How do you and Meghan talk to your children about attention? About who mom and dad are to the world? By reminding them the world is not invited to dinner, he said, and by limiting the world's appetite. That's wise, Hoda said. Some parents watching will want to borrow that line. They can borrow the mindset, he replied. The line's mine. The audience's low murmur broke like foam and fell quiet again. Hoda felt it, the glossy surface taut as drum skin. She softened her voice further, careful as she could be. Harry, I want to phrase this gently. When we talk about Diana, her tragic death, there's a tenderness so many feel. Do you... Let's stop there, he said, the politeness now porcelain. Framing my mother's death as a talking point is unnecessary. Even when wrapped in tenderness, Hoda absorbed the hit, lifted her chin a millimeter. I understand, she said sincere. My intent is respect. Always intent is lovely, he answered. Impact is what lands. There it was, the bell you pretend you didn't hear. Hoda eased back, refusing to tense. Then let's pivot, she smiled. You use the word control often. It can be empowering. It can also be exhausting. Do you ever wish you could just not manage the narrative? I do not manage it, he said. I own it. Owners don't manage, they decide. And when people disagree with the decisions, they'll live, he said simply. So will I. The crew behind glass exchanged the kind of glances only veterans trade. Hoda set her cards down altogether now, hands open on the table. Harry, you're clearly passionate about drawing lines. This is your chance to draw one with your own pen. What's the question you wish interviewers would stop asking? He thought for a beat, enough to suggest magnanimity. Anything that assumes I owe them access. And what do you wish they would ask? What I'm building, and he said, not what I burned. Hoda smiled again, genuine, patient. Okay, what are you building? A life where my family is not a buffet, he said. A culture where service isn't a costume. A version of manhood that doesn't require a balcony. That's powerful, Hoda said. Thank you. He tipped his chin as if granting it. The floor manager lifted 2 fingers. 90 seconds to break. Hoda knew audiences remember the temperature, not the transcript. She reached for one more olive branch. Last one before we pause, she said gently. When the cameras go dark and the house is quiet, what grounds you? He watched her, a glint in his eyes that might have been amusement or warning. Knowing I don't have to justify my piece to morning television, he said, pleasant as iced water. The smile stayed on Hoda's face, but it was now a held note, sustained by muscle rather than mood. We'll take a quick break, she said to camera one, still warm. When we come back, service, legacy, and what home really means. The tally light blinked off. The clatter of the crew returned like birds after thunder. Hoda exhaled, slow, set her cards aside entirely and looked at him. Not as a prince, not as a headline, but as a man choosing sharp edges over bridges. Thanks for being here, she said quietly. He gave that unbothered smile again. Thanks for providing context. She nodded, turned her gaze to the skyline glass, and counted the beats to the next red light. She'd kept it gentle. He'd kept it high. And somewhere between gentleness and altitude, the storm had begun to form. The red light returned, crisp and unblinking. Hoda set aside her cards completely, palms open, as if to show there were no tricks up her sleeves, only questions and room for the answers to breathe. Welcome back, she said, voice warm and steady. We're here with Prince Harry, talking about life, purpose, and the lines we draw to protect both. She turned to him with a soft smile. Harry, if you're willing, let's talk a little about the everyday. Not headlines, habits. What does a good day look like for you now? He smoothed an invisible wrinkle from his jacket. A good day is one I don't have to explain, he said. Coffee on my schedule, work that matters. No one trying to measure my life with a microphone. Hoda nodded. Do you ever miss anonymity? I never had it, he said lightly. People who ask that usually did. A few tight laughs ricocheted in the studio. Hoda let them fade. You and Meghan are often described as a brand, sometimes with admiration, sometimes with criticism. Do you feel like a brand? I feel like a person who learned the cost of being a product, he replied. We invoice differently now. Invoice, Hoda echoed, almost amused. That's one way to put it. It's the honest way, he said, smiling without softness. People who never paid my bill love to judge the price. She didn't bite. You mentioned Sunday pancakes earlier. A lot of parents watching connected with that. How do you and Meghan approach raising kids who will grow up visible? By making sure they're seen by us first, he said. The world is not a co-parent. It can wait outside. That's beautifully said, Hoda offered. It's functional, he corrected. Beautiful things tend to get framed. She changed lanes, gentle as a whisper. I'm going to ask this with care. You've spoken publicly about pressure, scrutiny, even fear, particularly around the British press. Does any of that feel different in America? Different costumes, same appetite, he said. Over there, it's heritage theater. Over here, it's subscription drama. We keep the doors locked either way. Do you ever wish, Hoda asked, that there could be a truce? Not with institutions, just with the noise? I declared a truce, he said. It refused terms. Hoda smiled faintly. You do have a way with lines. Years of being turned into one, he said. She hesitated, then waded into the shallows of personal curiosity. Harry, marriages work, no matter who you are. How do you and Meghan keep your center, with so many forces pulling at the edges? He let a heartbeat pass as if choosing magnanimity again. We keep the center in a place no one else can find, he said. It's amazing how quiet love becomes when you stop auctioning it. I like that, Hoda said softly. It sounds protective. It's sane, he replied. Protective would imply a threat. I don't hand threats that compliment. She absorbed the sting, then continued. There are rumors always that suggest strain. I'm not asking you to address them point by point. But for those who worry, who care, strangers are not stakeholders, he cut in. Still pleasant, still cold. Caring at a distance is often entitlement wrapped in empathy. We're fine, Hoda inhaled slowly through her nose, keeping the air warm. Understood. Let's zoom out then. A lot of people grew up watching you grow up. They feel, rightly or wrongly, invested. What would you want them to understand about the man you are now? That I'm not a public utility, he said, and that my evolution doesn't require their permission slips. Her smile held, but her eyes steadied. When you speak like that, confident, decisive, some hear arrogance. They mistake altitude for attitude, he said. I climbed out of a script. Breathing different air comes with side effects. Do you worry those side effects cost you connection? Hoda asked. You've always connected with people. Soldiers, kids, families in crisis. I connect with the people in the room, he said. The internet is not a room. A producer flashed a small time cue. Hoda nodded subtly, then chose a card again. Not to shield herself, but to show the question belonged to the format, not her. Harry, I want to ask about service. You've done a tremendous amount. Invictus, mental health initiatives. What do the next 5 years look like? Doing, not previewing, he said. We'll build more spaces that don't ask trauma to audition. We'll fund programs that measure outcomes, not optics. He paused, then added, with unmistakable relish, and we'll do it without bowing to the rooms that used to demand I curtsy. Hoda's laugh came quick and careful. That's a visual. She gently turned the prism. When you talk about the monarchy, there's often a sharpness. Do you miss anything about it? Gravity, and he said. History gives its weight. It's useful, but weight isn't the same as wisdom. And the family within it, Hoda said, not the institution. The people, my relationships are not a format, he replied. They are not here to be content. A longer silence this time. Hoda softened everything, shoulders, voice, gaze. I hear you. I respect your lines. I want to ask one more, carefully, and you can pass if you'd prefer. You've said your mother is a voice in the quiet moments. Does sharing even a little of how that voice guides you feel healing? To you or to the many who loved her? His smile thinned to thread. Hoda, you're asking me to ritualize grief on morning television, to perform tenderness on command. The civility in his tone now rang like cut glass. I'm not opposed to healing. I'm opposed to harvest. I wasn't harvesting, Hoda said gently. I was hoping for a handhold. For the people who what? He asked, still poised, now unmistakably hard. People who feel entitled to a share because they bought the commemorative magazine. I know the game. I've lived it. The air in the studio turned fine and brittle. Hoda breathed into it, smoothing the edges. All right, she said with a small nod that carried oceans of grace. Let's move to craft. You've written, produced, campaigned. Any chance you'll act, narrate, step behind the camera more? I'll step where the work warrants, he said, not where curiosity whistles. Fair, Hoda murmured. When you're in rooms where people disagree with you about strategy, about message, how do you respond? With competence, he said. I don't have to outshout anyone when I can outperform them. Does that ever read as dismissive? Only to the underprepared, he replied. This time the quiet wasn't brittle, it was heavy. Hoda nodded slowly, her kindness undented, but no longer weightless. Harry, I want to say this as compassionately as I can, she began. You're articulate and passionate. You're also at times very direct, he supplied, amused. Very high, she finished softly. High above the conversation. I say that with respect. Altitude keeps you from drowning, he said. It also gives you a view worth having. It can, Hoda agreed, holding his gaze. It can also make it hard to hear. He sat back, measuring her. I hear plenty, he said. I just don't take dictation. The floor manager flashed the break cue again. Hoda lifted her chin, a final bridge before the music. One last quick one, she offered. If you could tell your younger self one thing, on a balcony somewhere, what would it be? That the balcony isn't a horizon, he said. It's a ledge. Thank you, Hoda said, meaning it. We'll take a brief break. More with Prince Harry when we return. The red light blinked off. The city beyond the glass kept glimmering, oblivious to the temperature inside. Hoda turned slightly, not a host now, but a fellow human being, voice low and honest. I know you don't owe anyone anything, she said. I also know people tuned in hoping to meet the man they rooted for, the one who laughs with kids and sits on the floor with veterans. If you want that to be the man they meet, I can help you show him. He considered her for a long, unreadable beat, then the faintest smile, polite, polished, airtight. I prefer accuracy, he said, not nostalgia. The makeup artist hovered, then retreated. Hoda rested her hands on the table, the steady breath of a professional who has walked the edge of a fault line and kept her footing. The storm hadn't broken yet, but the lightning had started counting down. The final segment began with tension thick enough to taste. The lights looked brighter, the air thinner. Viewers at home saw the same cheerful smile they always did on Hoda Kotb's face, but behind it she was steadying herself like a pilot in a storm. Prince Harry sat across from her, cool and collected, that polished confidence now indistinguishable from defiance. Welcome back, Hoda said, her voice even. We're here with Prince Harry, talking about purpose, life, and everything in between. Mostly the in-between, Harry muttered, smirking. She ignored the jab. Before the break, we touched on your work with Invictus. You've built something extraordinary there. What drives you to keep pushing forward? Because I have the freedom to, he said flatly. Freedom is the only fuel that doesn't run out. That's inspiring, Hoda said carefully. But it's also lonely sometimes. Does it ever feel isolating? I prefer solitude to surveillance, Judy said, though I suppose some people find comfort being watched. She blinked, sensing the sting underneath. Harry, I'm only asking because people who follow your work admire your openness. My openness, he interrupted, has been weaponized enough, don't you think? The silence was heavy. Hoda smiled lightly. Let's talk about family for a moment. How are your children? Archie and Lilibet must be growing fast. They are, he said curtly. Healthy, happy. That's all that matters. I'm sure our viewers love hearing that, Hoda said warmly. You've spoken about wanting them to live a normal life. What does normal look like for you? Normal is not waking up to the sound of shutters clicking, he replied. It's not being treated like a mascot because of your bloodline. My kids will know freedom before fame. That's beautifully put, Hoda said, though the sharpness was impossible to miss. And Meghan, how's she finding life back in California? He smiled faintly, but his tone was edged. She's fine, Hoda. I know people love to imagine we're falling apart, but sorry to disappoint them. We were thriving. You'll need a new headline, Hoda gave a soft, controlled laugh. I wasn't looking for a headline, just a human answer. I gave you one, he said. People just don't recognize sincerity unless it's suffering. The audience murmured quietly. Hoda shifted in her seat, still gracious, but clearly tightening her grip on her composure. Harry, she said gently, many people still associate you with your mother's legacy, with compassion, with vulnerability. I think they'd like to know what. Don't, he said suddenly. His tone was low, his smile gone. Hoda froze. I'm sorry? Don't bring her into this, he said. You think mentioning my mother softens the edges? It doesn't. It's a trick journalists love. Weaponize grief. Call it connection. I would never. You just did, he cut in, his eyes cold. Hoda swallowed, still calm but now visibly shaken. Harry, I've interviewed presidents, survivors, soldiers. I promise my intention was. Intent doesn't matter, he said. Impact does. You all think you can sympathize your way into people's pain. It's invasive. It's exhausting. Her tone softened to the point of breaking. I hear you, but you have to understand, when people see you speak about her, it gives them strength. They feel, then let them get therapy, he said sharply. Gasps rippled across the studio. The air turned electric. Even the camera operators exchanged startled looks. Hoda took a steady breath, her voice trembling just slightly. That's a hard thing to say on live television, Harry. It's an honest one, he replied. She nodded once, eyes glistening, not from tears but disbelief. Honesty's good, but kindness costs nothing. He leaned back, crossing one leg. And false humility costs a career. I prefer the expensive truth that did it. The warmth in Hoda's eyes flickered out. When she spoke again, her tone was still measured, but the edge was there now, unmistakable. You know, Harry, she began quietly, I've hosted thousands of people on this program. Artists, leaders, even people who've lost everything. And not once have I been spoken to with this kind of arrogance. He raised an eyebrow, almost amused. Maybe they had better questions. Her breath hitched, but she didn't flinch. Or maybe they had better manners. The audience froze. You're sitting in front of millions of viewers, Hoda continued. People who've supported you, empathized with you, believed in you. And what you've shown them tonight isn't strength. It's entitlement. Harry's expression darkened. You don't know me, Hoda. I know enough, she said firmly. I know you grew up with everything. Wealth, access, opportunity. And now you're lecturing the world about hardship while living in a mansion in Montecito. You talk about freedom, but you've turned your privilege into a performance. Careful, he warned, his jaw tight. I am being careful, she said, because I was raised to respect people, even when they make it difficult. But I'm also someone's mother, someone's daughter, and I won't sit here and be sneered at by a man who's never learned that humility isn't a loss of power. The silence was crushing. Harry stood abruptly, pulling off his microphone. You know what, Hoda? I don't need this. I don't need you turning my life into your morning therapy session. She rose too, calm but unwavering. And I don't need guests who confuse honesty with hostility. He turned toward the exit, his voice dripping with disdain. You wanted drama. Congratulations. You've got it. She called after him, her tone steady but final. You wanted control, Harry, and you just lost it. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud. The cameras kept rolling. Hoda took a slow breath, turning to face the audience. Her composure returned, her professionalism absolute. To our viewers, she began softly, I want to apologize. This isn't the kind of conversation we wanted to share with you today. Sometimes, even with the best intentions, things take a turn. But I stand by my team, by this platform, and by the belief that respect should always have a place at the table. The audience, uncertain but supportive, began to clap. Hoda gave a tired smile. We'll be right back. The red light faded to black, and for a long moment, the studio was silent except for the faint hum of the lights overhead, the echo of a conversation that had crossed every line. And that's how it ended. A royal storm on live television. Prince Harry walked off, Hoda Kotb stood her ground, and the world saw what happens when charm collapses under ego. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because we've got more shocking interviews, explosive showdowns, and real-time meltdowns coming soon.